Excuse me. All right, now. We left with Nick carrying Jane Baker to the funeral home. Now we are on chapter 26, so I should introduce myself first. Yeah. I'm Lady Rain, and this is the Reader's Nook, and as everybody knows or should know, it gets chaotic sometimes. So, we're going to see what we can do today. This one's going to get a little loud because I'm going to emphasize it as much as is emphasized here. So, chapter 26, In the Stand. Some campus group, probably either students for the Democratic Society or the young Moists, I'm going to just say Moists, had been busy with a ditto machine during the night of June 25th to the 26th. In the morning, these posters were plastered all over the University of Kentucky at Louisville campus. Now, these are all in caps until I tell you we're done. Attention, 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 attention. You are being lied to. The government is lying to you. The press, which has been co-opted by the forces of the pig paramilitary, is lying to you. The administration of the university is lying to you, as are the infirmary doctors under the administration's orders. 1. There is no superflu vaccine. 2. Superflu is not a serious disease. It is a deadly disease. 3. Susceptibility may run as high as 75%. 4. Superflu was developed by the forces of the U.S. pig paramilitary and dispersed by accident. 5. The U.S. pig paramilitary now means to cover up their murderous blunder, even if it means 75% of the population will die. All revolutionary people, greetings. The time of our struggle is now. Unite, strive, conquer. Meeting in gym at 7 p.m. Strike, 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 strike. Okay? There. That's what these posters said. What happened at WBZ TV in Boston had been planned the night before by 3 newscasters and 6 technicians, all operating in Studio 6. 5 of these men played poker regularly, and 6 of the 9 were already ill. They felt they had nothing to lose. They collected nearly a dozen handguns. Bob Palmer, who anchored the morning news, brought them upstairs inside a flight bag where he usually carried his notes, pencils, and several legal-sized notepads. The entire broadcast facility was cordoned off by what they had been told were National Guardsmen, but as Palmer had told George Dickerson the night before, they were the only over 50 guardsmen he had ever seen. At 9:01 a.m., just after Palmer had begun to read the soothing copy he had been handed 10 minutes before by an Army non-com, a coup took place. The 9 of them effectively captured the television station. The soldiers, who hadn't expected any real trouble from the soft bunch of civilians accustomed to reporting tragedy at long distance, were taken completely by surprise and disarmed. Other station personnel joined the small rebellion and cleared the 6th floor quickly and locked all the doors. The elevators were brought to the 6 before the soldiers on the lobby level quite knew what was happening. 3 soldiers tried to come up the east fire stairs, and a janitor named Charles Yorkin, armed with an Army-issue carbine, fired a shot over their heads. It was the only shot fired. Viewers of the WBZ TV broadcast area saw Bob Palmer stop his newscast in the middle of a sentence and heard him say, "Okay, right now." And then the scuffling sounds off camera. When it was over, Thousands of bemused viewers saw that Bob Palmer was now holding a snub-nosed pistol in his hand. A hoarse, off-mic voice yelled jubilantly, "We got him, Bob! We got the bastards. We got them all. Okay, that's good work," Palmer said. He then faced into the camera again. "Fellow citizens of Boston and Americans in our broadcast area. Something both grave and terribly important has just happened in this studio. I am very glad it has happened here first, in Boston, the cradle of American independence. For the last 7 days, this broadcast facility has been under guard by men purporting to be National Guardsmen. Men in Army khaki, armed with guns, have been standing beside our cameramen in our control rooms, beside our teletypes. Has the news been managed? I am sorry to say that this is the case. I have been given copy and forced to read it, almost literally with gun to my head. The copy I have been reading has to do with the so-called superflu pandemic, and all of it is patently false." Lights began to flicker on the switchboard, and within 15 seconds, every light was on. "Our cameramen have taken film that has either been confiscated or deliberately exposed. Our reporters' stories have disappeared. Yet, we do have film, ladies and gentlemen, and we have correspondents right here in the studio. Not professional reporters, but eyewitnesses to what may be the greatest disaster this country has ever faced. And I do not use these words lightly. We are going to run some of this film for you now. All of it was taken clandestinely, and some of it is of poor quality. Yet we here, who have just liberated our own television station, think you may see enough, more indeed, than you might have wished." He looked up, took a handkerchief from his sport coat pocket, and blew his nose. Those with good color TVs could see that he looked flushed and feverish. "If it's ready, George, go ahead and run it." Palmer's face was replaced with shots of Boston General Hospital. Wards were crammed. Patients lay on the floors. The halls were full. Nurses, many of them obviously sick themselves, wove in and out. Some of them weeping hysterically. Others looked shocked to the point of a coma. Shots of guards standing on street corners with cradled rifles. Shots of buildings that had been broken into. Bob Palmer appeared again. "If you have children, ladies and gentlemen," he said quietly, "we would advise that you ask them to leave the room." A grainy shot of a truck backing down a pier, jetting out over Boston Harbor. A big olive-colored army truck. Below it, riding uncertainly, was a barge covered with canvas tarps. 2 soldiers, or ghosts, and alien and gas masks, jumped down from the truck's cab. The picture jiggled and joggled, then became steady again, as they pulled back the canvas sheet covering the open rear end of the truck. Then they jumped up inside, and bodies began to cascade out onto the barge. Women, old men, children, police, nurses. They came in a cartwheeling flood that seemed never to end.
Somebody carried this sideways or something, and all the toppings are on like one side.
That's fine, I'll eat cheese. At some point during the film clip, it became clear that the soldiers were using pitchforks to get them out. "Please bring the dogs in." "Thank you." "Phoebe can come in here." Palmer went on broadcasting for 2 hours. His steadily hoarsening voice, reading clippings and bulletins, interviewing other members of the crew. It went on until somebody on the ground floor realized that they didn't have to retake the 6th floor to stop it. At 11:16, "Stop it. What is the deal?"
I don't know.
"Let Phoebe in here. Let me see what happens."
I thought I just let Phoebe in here.
No, Harley's in here.
Phoebe! Phoebe, I called Harley. Get out of there. Phoebe!
Let them play a little bit. I want to see if they calm down.
Maybe. What are they eating?
I don't know. Put them both in here. It's fine.
Marley.
Get in here. Close the door. Let them play a little bit. If they fight, they can go back to bed. At 11:16, the WBZ transmitter was shut down permanently with 20 pounds of plastique. Palmer and the others on the 6th floor were summarily executed on charges of treason to their government, the United States of America. Sorry, he's calling for dinner. What?
I'm trying to cut this pizza, but all I'm doing is spreading this.
Be right back. Yes, I can. I'm hot. I can come in. Give me a second. Are you going to stop or do you want me to help? All right, now, where's the pizza cutter? You know, well, I washed it. So let's find it. Right here. Are you making two?
Is dishwasher done?
Yes, it is. Done is done.
Did it shut off while washing it?
No, it was drying. Shut off. It shut off while it was drying. At like 40. Please save me a few pieces. I appreciate it.
That's fine. Yeah,
okay.
I'm candy.
Okay. Put a couple pieces on a plate for me.
Yeah.
And if you guys wait and let it cool down, well, yeah, the plates are going to be hot. The boys are making dinner. They do pretty good. Now, with the WBZ crew executed on treason, we'll continue. It was a small town, once weekly West Virginia newspaper. Oh, it was a small town, once weekly Virginia newspaper, called the Durban Call Clarion. If you guys want to eat 2 each, save me a couple. He's making more. Put out by a retired lawyer named James D. Hoglis. And its circulation figures had always been good because Hoglis had been a fiery defender of the miners' right to organize in the late 1940s and in 1950s. And because his anti-establishment editorials were always filled with hellfire and brimstone missiles aimed at the government hacks at every level, from town to federal. Hoglis had a regular bunch of paper boys. But on this clear summer morning, he took the papers around himself in his 1948 Cadillac, the big white wall tires whispering up and down the streets of Durban. Dublin, wow. And the streets were painfully empty. The papers were piled on the Cadillac's seats and in its trunk. It was the wrong day for the Call Clarion to come out, but the paper was only one page of large type, set inside a black border. The word at the top proclaimed extra. The first extra edition Hoglis had put out since 1980, when the Lady Bird mine had exploded, entombing 40 miners for all time. The headline read, "Government forces try to conceal plague outbreak." And government was G-O-V, apostrophe T. Beneath, special to the Call Clarion by James D. Hoglis. Below that, it has been revealed to this reporter by a reliable source that the flu epidemic, sometimes called choking sickness or tube neck here in West Virginia, is in reality a deadly mutation of the ordinary flu virus created by this government for purposes of war, and in direct disregard of the revised Geneva Accords concerning germ and chemical warfare, accords which representatives of the United States signed 7 years ago. The source, who is an Army official now stationed in Wheeling, also said that promises of a soon forthcoming vaccine are a bald-faced lie. No vaccine, according to this source, has yet been developed. Citizens, this is more than a disaster or a tragedy. It is the end of all hope in our government. If we have indeed done such a thing to ourselves, then August was sick and very weak. He seemed to have used the last of his strength composing the editorial. It had gone from him into the words and had not been replaced. His chest was full of phlegm, and even normal breathing was like running uphill. Yet he went methodically from house to house, leaving his broadsides, not even knowing if the houses were still occupied, or if they were, if anyone inside had enough strength left to go out and pick up what he had left. Finally, he was on the west end of town, Poverty Row, with its shacks and trailers and its rank septic tank smell. Only the papers in the trunk remained, and he left it open, its lid flopping slowly up and down as he went over the washboards in the road. He was trying... No, leave them in here. Sit and eat. He was trying to... Stop. Unless they get up onto your plate, leave them be.
I'm trying to eat.
Stop it. Then put Harley out and put Phoebe in bed. Or go eat with your brother. You don't usually eat in here. That's why I have them in here, honey. Why don't you eat with your brother?
I want to watch it on Paramount Plus, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Then watch it on your phone. They act like they never ate, and they got big old bowls of food. Washboards in the road. He was trying to cope with the fearsome headache, and his vision kept doubling on him. When the last house, a tumble-down shack near the Racks Crossing town line, was taken care of, he still had a bundle of perhaps 25 papers. He slit the string which bound them with his old pocket knife, and then let the wind take them where the wind would. Thinking of his source, the major with dark, haunted eyes, who had been transferred from something top secret in California called Project Blue only 3 months before. The major had been charged with outside security there, and he kept fingering the pistol on his hip as he told Hoglass everything he knew. Hoglass thought it would not be long before the major used the gun, if he hadn't used it already. He climbed back behind the wheel of the Cadillac, the only car he owned since his 27th birthday, and discovered he was too tired to drive back to town. So he leaned back sleepily, listened to the drowning sounds coming from his chest, and watched the wind blow his extra additions lazily up the road toward Racks Crossing. Some of them had caught in the overhanging trees, where they hung like strange fruit. Nearby, he could hear the bubbling, racing sound of Durban Stream, where he had fished as a boy. There were no fish in it now, of course. The coal companies had seen to that. But the sound was still soothing. He closed his eyes, slept, and died an hour and a half later. The Los Angeles Times ran only 26,000 copies of their one-page extra before the officers in charge discovered that they were not printing an advertised circular. An advertised circular as they had been told. The reprisal was swift and bloody. The official FBI story was that radical revolutionaries, that old bungalow, had dynamited the LA Times presses, causing the death of 28 workers. The FBI didn't have to explain how the explosion had put bullets in each of the 28 heads, because the bodies were mingled with those of thousands of others, epidemic victims who were being buried at sea. Yet 10,000 copies got out, and that was enough. The headline in 36-point type screamed, "West Coast in grip of plague epidemic." Below it, thousands flee deadly superflu. Government cover-up certain. Los Angeles. Some of the soldiers reporting to the National Guardsmen helping out during the current ongoing tragedy are career soldiers with as many as 4 10-year pips on their sleeves. Part of their job is to ensure terrified Los Angeles residents that the superflu, known as Captain Trips by the young in most areas, is only slightly more virulent than the London or Hong Kong strains. But these assurances are made through portable respirators. The president is scheduled to speak tonight at 6 PST, Pacific Standard Time. And his press secretary, Herbert Ross, has branded reports that the president will speak from a set mocked up to look like the Oval Office, but actually deep in the White House bunker. Hysterical, vicious, and totally unfounded. Advanced copies of the president's speech indicate that he will spank the American people for overreacting and compare the current panic to that which followed Orson Welles' War of the Worlds radio broadcast in the early 30s. The Times has 5 questions it wishes the president would answer in his speech. 1. Why has the Times been enjoined from printing the news by thugs in army uniforms, in direct violation of its constitutional right to do so? 2. Why have the following highways, US 5, US 10, and US 15, been blocked off by armed cars and troop carriers? 3. If this is a minor outbreak of flu, why has martial law been declared for Los Angeles and surrounding areas? 4. If this is a minor outbreak of flu, then why are barge trains being towed out into the Pacific and dumped? And do these barges contain what we are afraid they contain, and what informed sources have assured us they do contain? The dead bodies of plague victims. 5. Finally, if a vaccine really is...
Mom?
Yeah. Finally, if a vaccine really is to be distributed to doctors and area hospitals early next week, why has not one of the 46 physicians that this newspaper contacted for further details heard of any delivery plans? Why has not one clinic been set up to administer flu shots? Why has not one of the 10 pharmaceutical houses we called gotten freight invoices or government flyers on this vaccine? We call upon the president to answer these questions in his speech. And above all, we call upon him to end these police state tactics and this insane effort to cover up the truth. Just shut it. That's all you guys gave me out of all of it. Wow. You guys are nice to give me 2 little pieces. Oh, so that makes the second piece? Yeah. What the heck?
Like 5 pieces.
There is. No, not if you had some unless the second pizza came out.
I had 3.
Okay, did a second pizza come out?
No.
All right then. I have 2, you had 2, he had 2. That's 1 whole pizza.
Cut them into 6 pieces.
I'm holding the seconds.
And the third one's right there.
Go. I'm holding what you're calling his seconds. These are mine. Don't touch.
Hey.
We call upon the president to answer these questions in his speech, and above all, we call upon him to end these police state tactics and this insane effort to cover up the truth. In Duluth, a man in khaki... Leave her go! In khaki shorts and sandals, walked up and down Piedmont Avenue with a large smear of ash on his forehead and a hand-lettered sandwich board hanging over his scrawny shoulders. The front read, "The time of the disappearance is here. Christ the Lord returneth soon. Prepare to meet your God." The back read, "Behold, the hearts of the sinners were broken. The great shall be abased, and the abased made great. The evil days are at hand. Woe to thee, O Zion. Four young men in motorcycle jackets, all of them with bad coughs and runny noses, set upon the man in the khaki shorts and beat him unconscious with his own sandwich board. Then they fled, one of them calling back hysterically over his shoulder, "Teach you to scare people! Teach you to scare people, you half-baked freak!" The highest-rated morning program in Springfield, Missouri, was KLFT's morning phone-in show, Speak Your Piece, by Ray Flowers. He had 6 phone lines into his studio booth, and on the morning of June 26th, he was the only KLFT employee to show up for work. He was aware of what was going on in the outside world, and it scared him. In the last week or so, it seemed to Ray that everyone he knew had come down sick. There were no troops in Springfield, but he had heard that the National Guard had been called into KC and St. Louis to stop the spread of panic and prevent looting. Ray Flowers himself felt fine. He looked thoughtfully at his equipment, phones, time-delayed device to edit those callers who lapsed into profanity from time to time, racks of commercials on cassettes. If your toilet overflows and you don't know just what goes, call for the man with the big steel hose. Call your clean out man. And of course, the mic. He lit a cigarette, went to the studio door and locked it, went into his booth and locked that. He turned off the canned music that had been playing for the tape reel. I apologize for her barking. She's mad. She's in bed for right now, so they can eat. Turned on his own theme music, and then settled in at the mic. "Hi, y'all," he said. "This is Ray Flowers on Speak Your Piece." Ah, I remember this one. If you've ever seen The Stand, you know who is in the studio. "Speak your piece, and this morning I guess there's only one thing to call about, isn't there? You can call it the tube neck, or the super flu, or Captain Trips, but it all means the same thing. I've heard some horror stories about the Army clamping down on everything. And if you want to talk about that, I'm ready to listen. It's still a free country, right? And since I'm here by myself this morning, we're going to do things a little bit differently. I've got the time delay turned off, and I think we can dispense with the commercials. If the Springfield you're seeing is anything like the one I'm seeing from the KLFT windows, no one feels more like shopping anyway. Much like shopping anyway. Okay, if you're supposed to be up and around, as my mother used to say, let's get going. Our toll-free numbers are 555-8600 and 555-8601. If you get it busy, just be patient. Remember, I'm doing it all myself. There was an Army unit
Can you help me cut this?
in Carthage, put it up there, 50 miles from Springfield, and the 20-man patrol was dispatched to take care of Ray Flowers.
Ow!
20 men. Wow. 2 men refused the order. They were shot on the spot. In the hour it took them to get to Springfield, Ray Flowers took calls from a doctor who said people were dying like flies and who thought the government was lying through its teeth about a vaccine, a hospital nurse who confirmed that bodies were being removed from Kansas City hospitals by the truckload, a delirious woman who claimed it was flying saucers from outer space, a farmer who said that an Army squad with 2 payloaders had just finished digging a hell of a long ditch in the field near Route 71, south of Kansas City. Half a dozen others with their own stories to tell. I'll be right back. I'm going to cut this pizza up. There's one out here.
Nicholas!
If you want to come
More!
over. Stop yelling. You guys do realize I'm alive, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, I don't give a shit, Mom.
Let me just bomb your stream and get you demonetized. Be
I'm
like,
demonetized to begin with. What are you talking about?
getting on here, staring into the screen and getting your, like, channel deleted by saying something like, 7-Eleven was a part-time job, didn't offer any wages, there were no union.
What are you talking about?
Unions are good for you. Microplastics are bad for the environment.
What the hell? Do you even know what you're saying? You are so weird.
7-Eleven was a part-time job, they didn't offer any benefits.
Okay then.
Oh man, I need to put this litter box in my room, or maybe I can put it somewhere down here.
No, not necessarily. No.
There's no space in my room.
Well, I guess you have to figure that out, huh?
No. It's your house, you should figure it out.
Nope, your litter box. Your cat. Then there was a crashing sound on the outer studio door. Open up! A muffled voice cried. Open up in the name of the United States! Ray looked at his watch. 12:15. Well, he said, looks like the Marines have landed, but we'll just keep taking calls, shall we? There was a rattle of automatic rifle fire, and the knob of the studio door thumped onto the rug. Blue smoke drifted out of the ragged hole. The door that was shouldered inward, and half a dozen soldiers wearing respirators and full battle dress burst in. Several soldiers have just broken into the outer office, Ray said. They are fully armed. They look like they're ready to start a mop-up operation in France 50 years ago. Except for the respirators on their faces. Shut it down, a heavy-set man with sergeant stripes on his sleeves yelled. He boomed outside the broadcast booth's glass walls and gestured with his rifle. I think not, Ray called back. He felt very cold, and when he fumbled a cigarette out of his ashtray, he saw that his fingers were trembling. The station is licensed by the FCC, and I'm revoking your fucking license. Now shut down. I think not, Ray said again, and turned back to his microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been ordered to shut down the KLFT transmitter, and I have refused the order. Quite properly, I think. These men are acting like Nazis, not American soldiers, and I am not. Last chance, the sergeant brought up his gun. Sergeant, one of the soldiers by the door said, I don't think you can just... If that man says anything else, waste him, the sergeant said. I think they're going to shoot me, Ray Flowers said. In the next moment, the glass of his broadcast booth blew inward, and he fell over his control panel. From somewhere there came a terrific feedback whine that spiraled up and down. The sergeant fired his entire clip into the control panel, and the feedback cut off. The lights of the switchboard continued to blink. Okay, the sergeant said, turning around. I want to get back to Carthage by 1 o'clock, and I don't. 3 of his men opened up on him simultaneously. One of them, with his recoilless rifle that fired 70 gas-tipped slugs per second. The sergeant did a jiggling, shuffling death dance, and then fell backwards through the shattered remains of the broadcast booth's glass wall. One leg spasmed, and his combat boot kicked shards of glass from the frame. A PFC pimple standing out in stark relief on his whey-colored face burst into tears. The others only stood in stunned disbelief. The smell of carbide oh my gosh, cardite was heavy and sickening in the air. We scragged him, the PFC cried hysterically. Holy God, we done scragged Sergeant Peters. No one replied. Their faces were still dazed and uncomprehending, although later they would only wish they had done it sooner. All of this was some deadly game, but it wasn't their game. The phone, which Ray Flowers had put in the amplifier cradle just before he died, gave out a series of squawks. Ray? You there, Ray? A voice was tired, nasally. I listen to your program all the time, me and my husband both. And we just wanted to say, keep up the good work and don't let them bully you. Okay, Ray? 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 I really want to finish eating. You know what? Give me like 2 minutes. I'll be right back. What? Why are you looking at me like that? Mm-mm. You have food. You don't need mine. No. All right. I got a little bit in my belly. Let's move on. This is all in capital letters. Communique 234, Zone 2, Secret Scramble. From Landon, Zone 2, New York. 2, Cretan, Commanding. Operation Carnival. Follows. New York, Cordon, still operative disposal of bodies, proceeding city relatively quiet. X. Cover story, unraveling faster than expected, but so far nothing we can't handle from city population. Superflu is keeping most of them inside. XX. Now estimate that 50% of troops manning barricades at points of Ingress, George Wash Bridge, Triborough Bridge, Brooklyn Bridge, Lincoln and Holland tunnels, plus limited access, highways in the outer boroughs, now ill with superflu. Most troops still capable of active duty and performing well. XXX. 3 fires out of control in city, Harlem, 7th Avenue, Shea Stadium, XXXX. Desertion from ranks becoming a greater problem. Deserters now being summarily shot. XXXXX. Personal summary is that situation is still viable, but deteriorating slowly. 6 X's. Communication ends. Landon, Zone 2, New York. In Boulder, Colorado, a rumor that the U.S. Meteorology Air Testing Center was really a biological warfare installation began to spread. The rumor was repeated on the air by a semi-delirious Denver FM disc jockey. By 11 p.m., now we're on to the lower letters. By 11 p.m. on the night of June 26th, a vast lemming-like exodus from Boulder had begun. A company of soldiers was sent out to Denver, Arvada to stop them. But it was like sending men with a whisk broom to clean up the Aegean stables. Better than 11,000 citizens, sick, scared, and with no other thought but to put as many miles between themselves and the air testing center as possible, rolled over them. Thousands of other Boulderites fled 2 other points of the compass. At 11:15, a shattering explosion lit the night at the Air Testing Center's location on Broadway. A young radical named Desmond Ramage had planted better than 16 pounds of plastique, originally embarked for various Midwestern courthouses and state legislatures in the ATC laboratory. The explosive was great. The timer was cruddy. Ramage was vaporized along with all sorts of harmless weather equipment and particle-for-particle pollution measuring gadgets. Meanwhile, the exodus from Boulder went on. Capitalized 771, Zone 6, Secret Scramble. From Gareth, Zone 6, Little Rock. To Cretan, commanding Operation Carnival. Follows. Brodsky neutralized. Repeat, Brodsky neutralized. He was found working in the storefront clinic here, tried, and summarily executed for treason against the United States of America. Some of those being treated attempted to interfere. 14 civilians shot, 6 killed, 3 of my men wounded, none seriously. X. Zone 6 forces this area working at only 40% capacity. Estimate 25% of those still on active duty, now ill with superflu. 15% AWOL. XX. Most serious incident in regard to contingency plan F for Frank. 3 X's. Sergeant T.L. Peters, stationed Carthage, Montana, on emergency duty, Carthage, Missouri. Springfield, Missouri, apparently assassinated by own men. 4 X's. Other incidents of similar nature possible, but unconfirmed. Situation deteriorating rapidly. 5 X's. Communication ends. Garfield, Zone 6, Little Rock. And then we're back to regular. When the evening was spread out against the sky like a patient etherized upon a table, 2,000 students attending Kent State University in Ohio went on the warpath, big time. The 2,000 rioters consisted of first mini-semester summer students, members of the Symposium on the Future of College Journalism, 120 attendees of the drama workshop, and 200 members of the Future Farmers of America, Ohio branch, whose convention happened to coincide with the grass fire spread of the superflu. All of them had been cooped up on the campus since June 22nd, 4 days ago. What follows is a transcription of police band communications in the area, spanning the time period of 7:16 to 7:22 p.m. Unit 16, do you copy? Over. Copy. Unit 20, over. We got a group of kids coming down the mall here, 16, about 70 warm bodies, I'd say, and check that, Unit 16. We got another group coming the other way. Jesus, 200 or more in that one, looks like. Over. Unit 20, this is base. Do you copy? Over. Read you 5 by base. Over. I'm sending Chum and Halliday. Over. Block the road with your car. Take no other action. If they go over you, spread your legs and enjoy it. No resistance. Do you copy? Over. I copy. No resistance, base. What are those soldiers doing over on the eastern side of the mall, base? Over. What soldiers? Over. That's what I asked you, base. Base, this is Dudley Chum. Oh, shit. This is Unit 12. Sorry, base. There's a bunch of kids coming down Burroughs Drive. About 150. Headed for the mall, singing or chanting or some damn thing. But Cap, Jesus Christ, we see soldiers too. They're wearing gas masks. I think, they look to be in skirmish line. That's what it looks like, anyway. Over. Base to Unit 12. Join Unit 20 at the foot of the mall. Same instructions. No resistance. Over. Roger, base. I'm rolling. Over. Base, this is Unit 17. This is Holiday Base. Do you copy? Over. I copy. 17. Over. I'm behind, chum. There's another 200 kids coming west to east toward the mall. They've got signs, just like in the 60s. One says, soldiers throw down your guns. I see another one that says, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I don't give a shit what the sign says, Unit 17. Get down there with Chum and Peters and block them off. It sounds like they're headed into a tornado. Over. Roger. Over and out. This is campus security. Chief Richard Burley. Now speaking to the head of military forces encamped on the south side of the campus. Repeat. This is campus security Chief Burley. I know you've been monitoring our communications, so please spare me the ducking and fucking and acknowledge. Over. This is Colonel Albert Phillips, U.S. Army. We are listening. Chief Burlow. Over. Base, this is Unit 16. The kids are coming together at the War Memorial. They appear to be turning toward the soldiers. This looks nasty. Over. This is Burley. Colonel Phillips, please state your intentions. Over. My orders are to contain those present on campus to the campus. My only intention is to follow my orders. If those people are just demonstrating, they are fine. If they intend to try breaking out of quarantine, they are not. Over. You surely don't mean... I mean what I said, Chief Burley. Over and out. Phillips, answer me, goddamn you. They aren't commie guerrillas out there. They're kids, American kids. They aren't armed. Unit 13 to base. Those kids are walking right toward the soldiers, Cap. They're waving their signs, singing that song. The one the Bez Crotch used to sing. Oh, shit. I think some of them are throwing rocks. Jesus Christ, they can't do that. Base to Unit 13, we're going on out there. What's happening? This is Chum, Dick. I tell you what's happening out there. It's a slaughter. I wish I was blind. Oh, the fuckers. They're mowing those kids down with machine guns. It looks like, as far as I can tell, there wasn't even any warning. The kids are all still on their feet. They're breaking up, running to all points of the campus. Oh, Christ. I just saw a girl cut in half by gunfire. Blood. There must be 70, 80 kids lying out there on the grass. Chum, come in, Unit 12. Base, this is Unit 17. Come in, do you copy? Over. I copy you, goddammit, but where's fucking Chum? Fucking over. Chum and Holiday, I think, got out of their cars for a better look. We're coming back, Dick. Now it looks like the soldiers are shooting each other. I don't know who's winning, and I don't care. Whoever it is will probably start on us next. When those of us who can get back do get back, I suggest that we all go down to the basement and wait for them to use up their ammo. Over. God damn it! The turkey shoot's still going on, Dick. I'm not kidding. Over, out. Through most of the running exchange, transcribed above, the listener can hear faint popping sounds in the background, not unlike horse chestnuts in an open fire, or in a hot fire. One may also hear thin screams. And in the last 40 seconds or so, the heavy, coughing thump of mortar rounds exploding. Following is a transcription taken from the special high-frequency radio band in Southern California. The transcription was made from 7:17 to 7:20 PST. Massengill, Zone 10. Are you there, Blue Base? This is message coded Annie Oakley. Urgent +10. Come in. If you're there, over. This is Len, David. We can skip the jargon, I think. Nobody's listening. It's out of control, Len. Everything. LA is going up in flames. Whole fucking city and everything around it. All my men are sick or riding or AWOL or looting right along with the civilian population. I'm in the skylight room of the Bank of America main branch. There's over 600 people trying to get in and get to me. Most of them are regular army. Things fall apart. The center does not hold. Say again, I didn't copy. Never mind, can you get out? Hell no! But I'll give the first of the scum something to think about. I've got a recoilless rifle here. Scum. Fucking scum. Luck, David. You too. Hold it together as long as you can. Will do. I'm not sure. Verbal communication ends at this point. There is a splintering, crashing sound, the screech of giving metal, the tinkle of breaking glass, a great many yelling voices, small arms fire, and then, very close to the radio transmitter, close enough to distort, the heavy thudding explosions of what might very well be a recoilless rifle. The yelling, roaring voices draw closer. There is a whining sound of a ricochet, a scream very close to the transmitter, a thud, and silence. Following is the transcription taken from the regular Army base in San Francisco. The transcription was made from 7:28 to 7:30 p.m. PST. Soldiers and brothers, we have taken the radio station in the Command HQ. Your oppressors are dead. I, Brother Zeno. Until moments ago, Sergeant First Class Roland Gibbs proclaimed myself first president of the Republic of Northern California. We are in control. We are in control. If your officers in the field try to countermand your orders, shoot them like dogs in the street. Like dogs. Like bitches with shit drying on their rumps. Take down name, rank, and serial numbers of deserters. List those that speak sedition or treason against the Republic of Northern California. A new day is dawning. The day of the oppressor is ended. We are... A rattle of machine gun fire, screams, thumps, and thuds. Pistol shots, more screams. A sustained burst of machine gun fire.
Oh shit!
A long... Is he coming down?
That happens?
Not that one, no. Ask if he's coming down for more. Or make another one.
6 or 8.
You want to make another one? There was only 6 pieces.
Nick, did you have your second pizza?
Pistol shots, more screams. A sustained burst of machine gun fire.
Nick?
A long, dying moan. 3 seconds of dead air.
Nick?
I'll call him. Wait. I can hear something. Hold on. Hold on. Do you want more pizza? Are you sure? Because there's more down here. Yeah? Are you almost done with the TV so he can watch something?
Sure, fuck it. Yeah.
Come on down and watch something.
Okay.
You want more pizza? Okay. Throw either the pepperoni or the other pizza in. Let's cook one more. And that way you boys can have more because you only got 4 pieces each.
I was about to go.
Oh, are you done eating then?
Yeah.
Okay. This is Major Alfred Nunn, United States Army. I am taking provisional and temporary control of United States forces in the San Francisco area. A handful of traitors present in this HQ have been dealt with. I am in command. Repeat, in command. The holding operation will go on. Deserters and defectors will be dealt with as before. Extreme prejudice. Repeat, extreme prejudice. I am now... More gunfire. A scream. Background. Them all. Get them all. Death to the war pigs.
I'm just... Are you doing finished those?
Are those 2 yours?
Yeah.
Then go eat.
What about the one?
Those are mine.
Excuse me, Timbo.
Heavy... I said if you guys want another one, make another one. Heavy gunfire. Then silence on the band. At 9:16 p.m. EST, Eastern Standard Time, those still well enough to watch television in the Portland, Maine area tuned in WCCO SHTV and watched with numbed horror as a huge black man, naked except for a pink leather loincloth and a Marine officer's cap, obviously ill, performed a series of 62 public executions. His colleagues, also black, also nearly naked, all wore loincloths and some badge of rank to show they had once belonged to the military. They were armed with automatic and semi-automatic weapons. In the area where a studio audience had once watched local political debates and dialing for dollars, more members of this black junta covered perhaps 200 khaki-clad soldiers with rifles and handguns. The huge black man who grinned a lot, showing amazingly even and white teeth in his coal-black face, was holding a .45 automatic pistol and standing beside a large glass drum. In a time that already seemed long ago, that drum had held scraps of cut-up telephone book for the Dial for Dollars program. Now he spun it, pulled out a driver's license, and called PFC Franklin Stern front and center. Police! The army man flanking the audience on all sides bent to look at the name tags, while a cameraman, obviously new to the trade, panned the audience in jerky sweeps. Sit down and watch your show.
I was going to ask if he fixed HBO Max.
No, but I don't know. I haven't watched it. Watch Paramount or something. At last, a young man with light blonde hair, no more than 19, then text him and ask, okay? Was jerked to his feet, screaming and protesting, and led up to the set area. Two of the blacks forced him to his knees. The black man grinned, sneezed, spat phlegm, put the .45 automatic to PFC Stern's temple. No, Stern cried hysterically. I'll come with you. Honest to God, I will. I'll... In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost. All one word. The big black man intoned, grinning, and pulled the trigger. There was a large smear of blood and brains behind the spot where PFC Stern was being forced to kneel. And now he added his own contribution. Splat. The black man sneezed again and almost fell over. Another black man, this one in the control room. He was wearing a green, long-billed fatigue cap and pristine white jockey shorts, pushed the applause button, and in front of the studio audience, the sign flashed on.
He said, I don't have HBO Max.
Then pick something else.
So can I remove HBO Max?
Leave it there for now. The blacks guarding the audience, audience/prisoners, raised their... Will you just pick a show? You are not removing it. What if I have it? What if I want to get it? What if I want it there? Don't remove something until you ask your dad. Raised their weapons threateningly, and the captive white soldiers, their faces glistening with perspiration and terror, applauded wildly. Next! The black man in the loincloth proclaimed hoarsely, and delved into the drum again. He looked at the slip and announced, Master Tech Sergeant Roger Peterson, front and center, police! A man in the audience began to howl and made an abortive dive for the back doors. Seconds later, he was up on stage. In the confusion, one of the men in the third row tried to remove the name tag pinned to his blouse. One shot banged out, and he slumped down in his seat, his eyes glazed as if such a tawdry show had bored him into a death-like semi-doze. This spectacle went on until almost 11:15, when 4 squads of regular army, wearing respirators and carrying submachine guns, crashed into the studio. The 2 dying groups of soldiers immediately went to war. The blacks in the loincloths went down almost immediately, cursing, sweating, riddled with bullets, and firing the black man in the loincloth, and firing his automatic pistol crazily onto the floor. The renegade who had been operating the number 2 camera was shot in the belly. and as he leaned forward to catch his spilling guts, his camera pivoted slowly around, giving the audience a leisurely panned shot of hell. The semi-naked guards were returning fire, and the soldiers in the respirators were spraying the entire audience area. The unarmed soldiers in the middle, instead of being rescued, found that their executions had only been sped up. A young man with carroty hair and a wild expression of panic on his face climbed over the backs of 6 rows of seats like a circus performer on stilts before his legs were chewed away by a stream of .45 caliber bullets. Others crawled up the carpeted aisles between rows, their noses to the floor, the way they had been taught to crawl under live machine gun fire in basic training. An aging sergeant with gray hair stood up, arms spread wide like a TV host, and screamed, "Stop!" at the top of his lungs. Heavy fire from both sides homed in on him, and he began to jig a jig like a disintegrating puppet. The rear of the guns and the screams of the dying and the wounded made the audio needles in the control room jump over to plus 50 decibels. The camera operator fell forward over the handle that controlled his camera, and those watching were now given only a merciful view of the studio ceiling for the rest of the exchange. The gunfire diminished over a period of 5 minutes to isolated explosions, then to nothing. Only the screams went on. At 5 minutes past 11, the studio ceiling was replaced on home screens by a picture of a cartoon man who was staring glumly at the cartoon TV. On the cartoon TV, there was a sign that said, "Sorry, we're having problems." As the evening wound toward its close, that was true of almost everyone. In Des Moines at 11:30 Central Standard Time, an old Buick covered with religious stickers, "Honk if you love Jesus," among others, cruised the deserted downtown streets relentlessly. There had been a fire in Des Moines earlier in the day that had burned most of the south side of Hull Avenue and Grandview Junior College. Later, there had been a riot that gutted most of the downtown area. When the sun went down, these streets had been filled with restlessly circling crowds of people, most of them under 25, many riding choppers. They had broken windows and stolen TV sets, filled their gas tanks at service stations while watching for anyone who might have a gun. Now the streets were empty. Some of them, the bikers mainly, were kicking out their remaining jams on Interstate 80. But most of them had crept into houses and locked the doors, already suffering with superflu or only terror of it as daylight left this flat green land. Now Des Moines looked like the aftermath of some monster New Year's Eve party after sodden sleep had claimed the last of the revelers. The Buick's tires whispered and crunched over the broken glass in the street and turned west from 14th onto Euclid Avenue, passing 2 cars that had crashed head-on and now lay on their sides with their bumpers interlaced, like lovers after a successful double homicide. There was a loudspeaker on top of the Buick's roof, and now it began to give off amplified boops and beeps, followed by the scratchy sounds of an old record's opening grooves, and then, blaring up and down the spectral, deserted streets of Des Moines, came the sweet, droning voice of Mother Maybelle Carter, singing, "Keep on the sunny side." Keep on the sunny side, always on the sunny side, keep on the sunny side of life. Though your problems may be many, it will seem you don't have any if you keep on the sunny side of life. The old Buick cruised on, making figure eights, loops, sometimes circling the same block 3 or 4 times. When it hit a bump or rolled over a body, the record would skip. At 20 minutes to midnight, the Buick pulled over to the curb and idled. Then it began to roll again. The loudspeaker blared Elvis Presley singing "The Old Rugged Cross," and a night wind sowed through the trees, and stirred a final whiff of smoke from the smoldering ruins of a junior college. From the President's speech, delivered at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, EST, not seen in many areas. A great nation such as this must do. We cannot afford to jump at shadows like small children in a dark room. But neither can we afford to take this serious outbreak of influenza lightly. My fellow Americans, I urge you to stay at home. If you feel ill, stay in bed, take aspirin, drink plenty of clear liquids. Be confident that you will feel better in a week at most. Let me repeat that what I said at the beginning of my talk to you this evening. There is no truth to the rumor that this strain of flu is fatal. In the greatest majority of cases, a person afflicted can expect to be up and around and feeling fine within a week. Further, a spasm of coughing. Further, there has been a vicious rumor promulgated by certain radical anti-establishment groups that this strain of influenza has been somehow bred by this government for some possible military use. Fellow Americans, this is a flat-out falsehood, and I want to brand it as such right here and now. This country signed the revised Geneva Accords on poison gas, nerve gas, and germ warfare in good conscience and in good faith. We have not now, nor have we ever, spasm of sneezes, have we ever been a party to the clandestine manufacture of substances outlawed by the Geneva Convention. This is a moderately serious outbreak of influenza. No more and no less. We have reports tonight of outbreaks in the scores of other countries, including Russia and Red China. Therefore, a spasm of coughs and sneezes, we ask you to remain calm and secure in the knowledge that late this week or early next, a flu vaccine will be available for those not already on the mend. National Guardsmen have been called out to some areas to protect the populace against hooligans, vandals, and scaremongers. There is absolutely no truth to the rumor that some cities have been occupied by regular army forces or that the news has been managed. My fellow Americans, this is a flat-out falsehood, and I want to brand it as such right here and graffito written on the front of the First Baptist Church in Atlanta in red spray paint. Dear Jesus, I will see you soon. Your friend, America. P.S. I hope you will still have some vaccines by the end of this week. All right, we'll see if we can get through 27, shall we? I have about half an hour. Chapter 27. Larry Underwood sat on a bench in Central Park on the morning of June 27th, looking into the menagerie. Behind him, Fifth Avenue was crazily jammed with cars, all of them silent now, their owners dead or fled. Further down Fifth, many of the posh shops were smoking rubble. From where Larry sat, he could see a lion, an antelope, a zebra, and some sort of monkey. All but the monkey were dead. They had not died of the flu, Larry judged. They had gotten no food or water, God knew how long, and that had killed them. All but the monkey. And in the 3 hours that Larry had been sitting here, the monkey had moved only 4 or 5 times. The monkey had been smart enough to outwit starvation and death by thirst. So far, but it surely had a good case of superflu. That was one monkey who was hurtin' for certain. It was a hard old world. To his right, the clock with all the animals chimed the hour of 11. The clockwork figures, which had once delighted all children, now played to an empty house. The bear tooted his horn. The clockwork monkey, who had never been sick, but who might eventually run down, played a tambourine. The elephant beat his drum with his trunk. Heavy tunes, baby, heavy fucking tunes. End of the world, suite arranged for clockwork figures. After a bit, the clock fell silent, and he could hear the horse shouting again. Horse, not an actual horse. Now mercifully faint with distance. The monster shouter was somewhere off to Larry's left. His fine forenoon, perhaps in the Heckshire playground. Maybe he would fall into the wading pool there and drown. Monster's coming, the faint hoarse voice cried. The overcast had broken this morning, and the day was bright and hot. A bee cruised past Larry's nose, circled one of the nearby flower beds, and made a 3-point landing on a peony flower. From the menagerie came a soothing, soporific drone of the flies as they landed on dead animals. Monster's coming now! The monster shouter was a tall man who looked to be in his middle 60s. Larry had first heard him the night before, which he had spent in the Sherry, Netherland. With night lying over the unnaturally quiet city, the faint, howling voice had seemed sonorous and dark. The voice of the lunatic Jeremiah floating through the streets of Manhattan, echoing, rebounding, distorting. Larry lying sleepless in a queen-size double with every light in the suite blazing, had become irrationally convinced that the monster shouter was coming for him, seeking him out, the way that creatures from his frequent bad dreams sometimes did. For a long time it had seemed that the voice was drawing ever close. Monsters coming, monsters on the way, they're in the suburbs. And Larry became convinced that the suite's door, which had been triple locked, would burst inward, and that the monster shouter would be there, not a human being at all, but a gigantic troll thing with the head of a dog and the saucer-sized fly eyes and champing teeth. But early this morning, Larry had seen him in the park, and he was only a crazy old man wearing corduroy pants and Zorius and horn-rimmed glasses, with one bow taped. Larry had tried to speak to him, and the monster shouter had run in terror, crying back over his shoulder that the monsters would be in the streets at any moment. He had tripped over an ankle-high wire fence and went sprawling on one of the bike paths at the loud comic thwomp sound, his glasses flying off, but not shattering. Larry had gone to him, but before he could get there, the monster shouter had scooped up his glasses and was gone toward the mall, crying his endless warning. So Larry's opinion of him had swung from extreme terror to utter boredom and mild annoyance in the space of 12 hours. There were other people in the park. Larry had spoken to a few of them. They were all pretty much the same, and Larry supposed that he wasn't much different. They were dazed, their speech disjointed, and they seemed helpless to stop reaching for your sleeve with their hands as they talked. They had stories to tell. All the stories were the same. Their friends and relatives were dead or dying. There had been shouting in the streets. There had been an inferno on Fifth Avenue. And it was true that Tiffany's was gone. Could that be true? Or was it true that Tiffany's was gone? Could that be true? Who was going to clean up? Who was going to collect the garbage? Should they get out of New York? They had heard that troops were guarding all the places where one could hope to do this. One woman was terrified that the rats were going to rise up out of the subways and inherit the earth, reminding Larry uneasily of his own thoughts on the day he had first returned to New York. A young man munching Fritos from a gigantic bag told Larry conversationally that he was going to fulfill a lifetime ambition. He was going to Yankee Stadium, run around the outfield naked, and then masturbate on home plate. Chance of a lifetime, man, he told Larry, winked with both eyes, and then wandered off eating Fritos. Many of the people in the park were sick, but not many had died there. Perhaps they had uneasy thoughts of being munched for dinner by the animals, and they had crawled indoors when they had felt the end was near. Larry had had only one confrontation with death this morning, and one was all he wanted. He had woke up transverse number one. He had walked up transverse number one to the comfort station there. He had opened the door, and a grinning dead man with maggots crawling briskly hither and yon on his face had been seated inside, his hands settled on his bare thighs, his sunken eyes staring into Larry's own. A sickening sweet smell bloated out at Larry as if the man sitting there was a rancid bonbon, a sweet treat which, in all the confusion, had been left for the flies. Larry slammed the door shut, but belatedly he lost the cornflakes he had eaten for breakfast, and then dry heaved until he was afraid he might rupture some of his inner workings. God, if you're there, he had prayed, as he stumbled back toward the menagerie. If you're taking requests today, big fella, mine is not to have to look at anything else like that today. The kooks are bad enough. Something like this is more than I can take. Thank you so much. Now sitting on this bench, the monster shouter had moved out of earshot, at least temporarily. Larry found himself thinking about the World Series 5 years ago. It was good to remember that because it now seemed to him that was the last time he had been completely happy. His physical condition tip-top, his mind resting easily and not working against itself. That had been just after he and Rusty split up. That had been a damn piss-poor thing, that split up. And if he ever saw Rudy again, never happened, his mind told him with a sigh, Larry was going to apologize. He would get down and kiss Rudy's shoe tops, if that was what Rudy needed to make it okay again. They had started off across the country in a wheezy old '68 Mercury that had been that had shat its transmission in Omaha. From there on, they would work for a couple of weeks, hitchhike west for a while, work another couple of weeks, and hitchhike some more. For a while, they worked on a farm in western Nebraska, just below the Panhandle. And in one night, Larry had lost $60 in a poker game. The next day, he'd had to ask Rudy for a loan to tide him over. They had arrived in L.A. a month later, and Larry had been the first to land a job, if you wanted to call washing dishes for minimum wage working. One night, about 3 weeks later, Rudy had broached the subject of the loan. He said he'd met a guy who'd recommended a really good employment agency, never miss, but the fee was $25, which happened to be the amount of the loan which he had made to Larry after the poker game. Ordinarily, Rudy said, he never would have asked for it, but Larry had protested that he'd paid the loan back. They were square. If Rudy wanted the 25, okay, but he just hoped Rudy wasn't trying to get him to pay off the same loan twice. Rudy said he didn't want a gift. He wanted the money he was owed. And he wasn't interested in a lot of Larry Underwood bullshit either. Jesus Christ, Larry said, trying a good-humored laugh. I never thought I'd need a receipt from you, Rudy. Guess I was wrong. It had escalated into a full-scale argument, almost to the point of blows. At the end, Rudy's face had been flushed. That's you, Larry, he'd shouted. That's you all over. That's what you are. I used to think I'd never learn my lesson, but I think I finally did. Fuck off, Larry. Rudy left, and Larry followed him to the stairs of the cheap rooming house, digging his wallet out of his back pocket. There were 3 tens neatly folded in the secret compartment behind the photos, and he had heaved them after Rudy. Go on, you cheap little lying fuck, take it. Take the goddamn money. Rudy had slammed the outer door open with a bang and had gone out into the night. toward whatever tin destiny the Rudies of the world can expect. He didn't look back. Larry had stood at the top of the stairs, breathing hard, and after a minute or so, he had looked around for his 3 $10 bills, gathered them up, and put them back away again. Thinking of the incident now and then over the years, he had become more and more sure that Rudy had been right. Actually, he was positive. Even if he had paid Rudy back. 2 of them had been friends since grade school, and it seemed, looking back, that Larry had always been a dime short for the Saturday matinee, because he'd bought some licorice whips or a couple of candy bars on the way over to Rudy's, or borrowing a nickel to round out his high school lunch money, or getting 7 cents to make up car fare. Over the years, he must have bummed $50 in change from Rudy, maybe 100. When Rudy had braced him for that, braced him for that 25, Larry could remember the way he had tightened up. His brain had subtracted $25 from the 3 tens and had said to him, "That only leaves $5, therefore you already paid him back. I'm not sure that's just when, but you did. Let's have no more discussion of the matter." And no more there had been. And this, I'm not sure what this picture is, but this is another picture that they have in the book. So, yeah. I think it's pretty cool though. But after that, he had been alone in the city. He had no friends. Hadn't even attempted to make any at the cafe in Encino where he worked. Fact was, he believed everyone who worked there, from the evil-tempered head cook to the ass-wiggling, gum-chewing waitresses, had been a dipstick. Yes, he really believed everyone at Tony's feed bag was a dipstick but him. The sainted, soon to succeed, or you better believe it, Larry Underwood. Alone in the world of dipsticks, he felt as achy as a whipped dog and as homesick as a man marooned on a desert island. He began to think more and more of buying a Greyhound Ameripass and dragging himself back to New York. In another month, maybe even 2 weeks, he would have done it too, except for Yvonne. He met Yvonne Wetterlin at the movie theater 2 blocks from the club where she worked as a topless dancer. When the second show let out, she had been weeping and searching around her seat on the aisle for her purse. It had a driver's license in it, also her checkbook, her union card, her 1 credit card, a photostat of her birth certificate, and her social security card. Although he was positive it had been stolen, Larry did not say so and helped her look for it. Sometimes it seemed they really must live in a world of wonders, because he had found it there 3 rows down, just as they were about to give up. He guessed it had probably migrated down there as a result of people shuffling their feet as they watched the picture, which had really been pretty boring. She had hugged him and wept as she thanked him. Larry felt like Captain America. Told her he wished he could take her out for burgers or something to celebrate. Only he was really strapped for cash. Yvonne said she'd treat. Larry, that great prince, had been pretty sure she would. They started to see each other. In less than 2 weeks, they had a regular thing going. Larry found a better job clerking in a bookstore and had gotten a gig singing with a group called the Hot Shot Rhythm Rangers, an all-time boogie band. The name was the best thing that about the group actually, but the rhythm guitarist had been Johnny McCall, who later went on to form the Tattered Remnants, and they were actually a pretty good band. Larry and Yvonne moved in together, and for Larry, everything changed. Part of it was just having his own place, and that was paying half the rent for. Wait, what? Oh, that he was paying half the rent for. Yvonne put up some curtains. They put some cheap thrift shop furniture and refurnished it together. Other members of the band and some of Yvonne's friends started to drop around. The place was bright in the daytime, and at night, a fragrant California breeze, which seemed redolent with oranges, even when the only thing in was really redolent with was smog, would drift in through the windows. Sometimes no one would come, and he and Yvonne would just watch television. And sometimes she would bring him a can of beer and sit on the arm of the chair and rub his neck. It was his own place, a home, God damn it. And sometimes he'd lie awake in bed at night with Yvonne sleeping beside him and marvel at how good he felt. Then he would slip smoothly into sleep, and it was the sleep of the just. And he never did think of Rudy Marks at all, at least not much. They lived together for 14 months, all of it fine until the last 6 weeks or so, when Yvonne got to be kind of a bitch. And part of it that summed it all up for Larry was the World Series. He would put in his day at the bookstore, then go over to Johnny McCall's house, and the two of them, the whole group, only practice on weekends because the other two guys had night jobs, would work on some new stuff and maybe just hack away at the great oldies, the ones Johnny called real bar rippers, tunes like Nobody But Me and Double Shot of My Baby's Love. Then he'd go home to his home, and Yvonne would have dinner all ready. Not just TV dinners, shit like that either. Real home cooking. Girl was well trained. And afterwards, they would go to the living room and turn on the tube and watch the series. Later, love. It all seemed all right. It all seemed his. There hadn't been one single thing hassling his mind. Nothing had been so good since then. Nothing. He realized he was crying a little bit, and he felt a momentary disgust as he should be sitting here on a bench in Central Park, crying in the sun like some wretched old man on a pension. Then it occurred to him that he had the right to cry for all the things he had lost, and that he had the right to be in shock, if that was what this was. His mother had died 3 days ago. She had been lying on a cot in the hallway of Mercy Hospital when she died, crammed in with thousands of others who were also busy dying. Larry had been kneeling beside her when she went, and he had thought he might go mad, watching his mother die, while all around him rose the stench of urine and feces, and hell's babble of the delirious, the choking, the insane, the screams of the bereaved. She hadn't known him at the end. There had been no final moments of recognition. Her chest had finally just stopped in mid-heave, and had settled very slowly, like the weight of an automobile settling down on a flat tire. He had crouched beside her for 10 minutes or so, not knowing what to do, thinking in a confused way that he ought to wait until the death certificate was signed, or someone asked him what had happened. But it was obvious what had happened. It was happening everywhere. It was just as obvious that the place was a madhouse. No sober young doctor was going to come along, express sympathy, and then start the machinery of death. Sooner or later, his mother would just be carried away like a sack of oats, and he didn't want to watch that. Her purse was under the cot. He found a pen and a bobby pin in her checkbook. He tore her a deposit slip from the back of her book and wrote her name on it, her address, and after a moment's calculation, her age. He clipped it to her blouse pocket with a bobby pin and began to cry. He kissed her cheek and fled, crying. He felt like a deserter. Being on the street had been a little better, although at that time the streets had been full of crazy people, sick people, and circling army patrols. And now he could sit on the bench and grieve for more general things: his mother's loss of her retirement, the loss of his own career. For that time in L.A., when he had sat watching the World Series with Yvonne, knowing there would be bed and love later, and for Rudy. Most of all, he grieved for Rudy and wished he had paid Rudy his $25, with a grin and a shrug, saving the 6 years that had been lost. The monkey died at 11:15. It was on the perch, just sitting there apathetically, with its hand drawn under its chin. And then its eyelids fluttered and it fell forward and hit the cement with a final horrid smack. Larry didn't want to sit there anymore. He got up and began to walk aimlessly down toward the mall with its large band shell. He had heard the monster shouter some 15 minutes ago, very far away, but now the only sound in the park seemed to be his own heels clicking on the cement and the twitter of the birds. Birds apparently didn't catch the flu. Good for them. When he neared the band shell, he saw a woman was sitting on one of the benches in front of it. She was maybe 50, but had taken great pains to look younger. She was dressed in expensive-looking gray-green slacks and a silk off-the-shoulder peasant blouse. Except, Larry thought, as far as he knew, peasants can't afford silk. She looked around at the sound of Larry's footsteps. She had a pill in one hand and tossed it casually into her mouth like a peanut. "Hi," Larry said. Her face was calm, her eyes blue. Sharp intelligence gleamed in them. She was wearing gold-rimmed glasses, and her pocketbook was trimmed with something that certainly looked like mink. There were 4 rings on her fingers, a wedding band, 2 diamonds, and a cat-eyed emerald. I'm not dangerous," he said. It was a ridiculous thing to say, he supposed, but she looked like she might be wearing about $20,000 on her fingers. Of course, they might be fakes, but she didn't look like a woman who would have much use for paste and zircons. "No," she said, "you don't look dangerous. You're not sick either." Her voice rose a little on the last word, making her statement into a polite half-question. She wasn't as calm as she looked at first glance. There was a little tick working on the side of her neck, and behind the lively intelligence of the blue eyes was the same dull shock that Larry had seen in his own eyes this morning as he shaved. "No, I don't think I am. Are you?" "Not at all." Did you know you have an ice cream wrapper on your shoe?" He looked down and saw that he did. It made him blush because he suspected that she would have informed him that his fly was open in that same tone. He stood on one leg and pulled it off of it. Tried to pull it off. "You look like a stork," she said. "Sit down and try it." "My name's Rita Blakemore." "Pleased to know you. I'm Larry Underwood." He sat down. She offered her hand, and he shook it lightly, his fingers pressing against her rings. Then he gingerly removed the ice cream wrapper from his shoe and dropped it primly into the can beside the bench that said, "It's your park, so keep it clean." It struck him funny, the whole operation. He threw his head back and laughed. It was the first real laugh since the day he had come home to find his mother lying on the floor of her apartment, and he was enormously relieved to find that the good feel of laughing hadn't changed. It rose from your belly and had escaped from between your teeth in the same jolly go-to-hell way. Okay, I still got time. Yes, I have to go and get my husband soon. Hi! Rita Blakemore was smiling both at him and with him, and he was struck again by her casual yet elegant handsomeness. She looked like a woman from an Irwin Shaw novel, Night Work, maybe, or the one they had made for TV, when he was just a kid. "When I heard you coming, I almost hid," she said. "I thought you were probably the man with the broken glasses and the queer philosophy. The monster shouter? Is that what you call him? Or what he calls himself?" "What I call him." "Very apt," she said, opening her mink-trimmed maybe bag and taking out a package of menthol cigarettes. "He reminds me of an insane Diogenes." "Yeah, just looking for an honest monster," Larry said and laughed again. She lit her cigarette and chuffed out smoke. He's not sick either, Larry said, but most of the others are. The doorman in my building seems very, very well, Rita said. He's still on duty. I tipped him $5 when I came out this morning. I don't know if I tipped him for being very well or for being on duty. What do you think? I really don't know. You well enough to say. No, of course you don't. He put her cigarette back in her bag, and he saw that. Oh, the cigarette pack. Okay. Put her cigarettes back in the bag and saw that there was a revolver in there. She followed his gaze. It was my husband's. He was a career executive with a major New York bank. That's just how he put it when anyone asked what he did to keep himself cocktail onions. I'm a career executive with a major New York bank. He died 2 years ago. He was at a luncheon with one of those Arabs who always looks as if they rubbed all the visible areas of their skin with brill cream. Brill cream. He had a massive stroke. He died with his tie on. Do you think that could be our generation's equivalent of that old saying about dying with your boots on? Harry Blakemore died with his tie on. I like it, Larry. He finched. A finch landed in front of them and perched the ground. He was insanely afraid of burglars. So he had to hit this gun. Do guns really kick or make a loud noise when they go off, Larry? Larry, who had never fired a gun in his life, said, I don't think that size would kick much. Is that a 38? I believe it's a 32. She took it out of her bag, and he saw that there were also a good many small pill bottles in there. This time she didn't follow his gaze. She was looking at the small china berry tree about 15 paces away. I believe I'll try it. You think I can hit that tree? I don't know, he said apprehensively. I really don't think. She pulled the trigger and the gun went off with a fairly impressive bang. A small hole appeared in the china berry tree. Bullseye, she said, and blew smoke from the pistol barrel like a like a gun finger. Real good, Larry said, and when she put the gun back in her purse, his heart resumed something like its normal rhythm. I couldn't shoot a person with it. I'm quite sure of that. And soon there won't be anyone to shoot, will there? Oh, I don't know about that. You were looking at my rings. Would you like one? Uh, huh? No, he began to blush again. As a banker, my husband believed in diamonds. He believed in them the way the Baptists believe in revelations. I have a great many diamonds, and they are all insured. We not only owned a piece of the rock, my Harry and I sometimes believe we held a lien on the whole damn thing. But if someone should want my diamonds, I would hand them over. After all, they're only rocks again, aren't they? I guess that's right. Of course, she said, and the tick on the side of her neck jumped again. And if a stickum man wanted them, I'd not only hand them over, I would give him the address of Cartier's. Their selection of rocks is much better than my own. What are you going to do now? Larry asked her. What would you suggest? I just don't know, Larry said and sighed. My answer exactly. You know something? I saw a guy this morning who said he was going to Yankee Stadium and masturbate at home plate. He could feel himself blushing again. What an awful walk for him, she said. Why didn't you suggest something closer? He sighed, and the sigh turned into a shudder. She opened her purse, took out a bottle of pills, and popped a gel capsule into her mouth. What's that? Larry asked. Vitamin E, she said, with a glistening false smile. The tick in her neck jumped once or twice and then stopped. She became serene again. There's nobody in the bars, Larry said suddenly. I went to Pat's on 43rd, and it was totally empty. They had that great big mahogany bar, and I went behind it and poured myself a water glass full of Johnny Walker. Then I didn't want to be there. So I left it sitting on the bar and got out. They sighed together like a chorus. They're very pleasant to be with, she said. Or you're very pleasant to be with, she said. I like you very much. And it's wonderful that you're not crazy. Well, thank you, Mrs. Blakemore. He was surprised and pleased. Rita. I'm Rita. Okay. Are you hungry, Larry? As a matter of fact, I am. Perhaps you'd take the lady to lunch. That would be a pleasure. She stood up and offered him her arm with a slightly depreciatory smile. As he linked his through it, he caught a whiff of her sachet, a smell that was at once comforting and disquietingly adult in its association for him, almost old. His mother had worn sachet on her many trips to the movie theater. Then he forgot about it as they walked out of the park and up Fifth Avenue, away from the dead monkey, the monster shouter, and the dark, sweet treat sitting endlessly inside the comfort station on Transverse Number 1. She chatted incessantly, and later he could remember no one thing she had chatted about. Yes, just one. She had always dreamed, she said, of strolling up Fifth Avenue on the arm of a handsome young man, a man who was young enough to have been her own son, but who wasn't, and he recalled the walk often just the same, especially after she began to jitter apart like some differently made toy. Her beautiful smile, her light, cynical, casual chatter, the whisper of her slacks. They went into the steakhouse, and Larry cooked, a trifle clumsily, but she applauded each course: the steak, the French fries, the instant coffee, the strawberry rhubarb pie. And we'll stop there for tonight because my pup's got to go out. So that's not bad. A little over an hour and a half. So we did 26 and 27 as planned. And tomorrow morning, I should be back tomorrow morning before I have to read. I have an appointment, so if I'm late, that's why, because I have an appointment. But we will be here again at 11 tomorrow morning to continue reading. In 3 days, we've gotten through 25 chapters. If we're able to go through, and I noticed I've only been able to do 2 chapters last couple times, and I do apologize for the morning chaos, but my kids are loud, funny, sometimes crazy, sometimes maddening. But for kids with autism, they all have their own personalities. Things are going to clash. So I do apologize for the chaos. But I love them, can I say? Even when I get frustrated. So I'm going to go. I'm going to take my puppies out, and then I'm going to go get my husband from work. I will see you all tomorrow morning. Thank you much. Follow if you'd like. Keep up with the schedule. I have my schedule posted. So we're just going to do every day 11 and 7. And there's my Discord for the group. It's for the group. So if you guys want to join. And I will see you guys later. Thank you much for watching. Thank you for being with me and sticking with me. And so I love y'all. Y'all have a good night. Bye.